Welcome to the show. Today we are talking about something that's very controversial. So if you have children in the room, I suggest that you get them out of here. We're going to have an adult conversation about something that lots of people don't like to talk about, and that is the pro-life versus the pro-choice movement. We're not going to get into the actual argument, but we're going to talk about what's been happening at places like outside the hospital in Kelowna, at UBCO, with the graphic posters. And the man behind those graphic posters is Marlon. Marlon, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Marlon Bartram. I'm the Executive Director of the Kelowna Right to Life Society, and we've been doing such demonstrations for a good 10 years now in the Kelowna area.
And you got any scratches on you? Any kind of broken bones?
Not yet. Been pretty lucky. Some close calls, but
Knock on wood.
definitely some opposition. But
and
so
speaking
far,
of that
still
opposition,
here.
you're still here. Well, we also have Kim. Kim is with UBCO. You have to say it because it's a mouthful.
My name is Kimberley Rutledge, and I'm the Vice President of External Affairs for the UBCSUO at UBCO Okanagan.
Okay. Now, recently, you guys have been in the news. I know I see the picture behind here. Do you want to explain from your guys' perspective at UBCO what happened and how the students have reacted to it?
So we had several complaints coming into the SUO from staff and from faculty as well as from students at our school that were saying that they were very upset and that there was some really graphic imagery being shown in accordance to the anti-choice protests. So we also had young women breaking down in our resource centers who were really upset because they had emotional connections to this topic. So we decided that this wasn't okay, and we decided to take a stance on it. Usually we try and remain neutral during things like this, but because it was directly targeting and oppressing a group of students on our campus, we decided to take a role that we wanted to advocate for all women on our campus to be able to govern their own bodies and to make their own choices.
Okay, we can't show these graphic images because they are very disturbing for people, and that's kind of the issue behind this topic. But from your point of view, what were you guys doing out at the campus?
Okay, well, the purpose of us being there was to simply expose the reality of abortion to the demographic that is very likely to get abortions. Statistics show that women between the ages of 19 and 25 make up at least half of all the abortions that take place.
Okay, now choosing the entrance to UBCO is one thing. What was behind the choice for the graphic nature of your posters?
How much time do we have?
Well,
yeah.
I'll be cutting it up later.
Well, some issues are so dramatic, so horrific, so dramatic that words alone don't accurately convey the meaning of them. Graphic imagery is necessary so that the audience, the viewer, can really grasp the gravity of the issue. And we feel that abortion is one of those. Without the images, it's sort of a nebulous removal of a clump of tissue. It's not really, there's no victim involved. It's just the woman and her body. Whereas these pictures that we show humanize the child who's being victimized by abortion, the unborn baby. So that's why we feel that they're necessary to really convey the true nature of what abortion is.
Okay, now you've heard what he has to say about the imagery, and if you haven't seen the imagery, you can Google it. There's plenty of it online. But what was your thought, and on behalf of the students that saw these graphic images, what kinds of reactions did you get?
We got a lot of upset people. And if you do see the graphics, and I'm sure you have, they're horrific and they are really upsetting. We're not just saying to young women, and we're not just saying to people who are emotionally connected to this, we're saying to everyone. There was young men coming to us and saying it was extremely inappropriate. There was staff and faculty and grown people who are coming to us and saying that this shouldn't be happening. And so that's really why we decided to take a stance on the issue. And we just advocate for all of our students to feel safe and to feel supported on this campus. Because not only were these images affecting people's overall well-being and their mental health, but it was also affecting their academic wellness. Because students were saying that they didn't want to come to campus because they wanted to avoid the images. And if there was a protest happening, they weren't going to come all together. And so that's also affecting their right to have an education that they're paying for.
Right. And in a situation like this, it is very difficult to be objective. And I see people from both the pro-life and the pro-choice sides equally being offended by how graphic these posters are. Is there any other way to do it that isn't so disturbing for people?
I don't think so. I think that there are times when we're out there with a simple text sign saying abortion hurts women, please call us to help. And we get much the same reaction as to the very graphic images that we use as well. I mean, people are just triggered by the pro-life message. And part of the reason they're triggered by the pro-life message is because with many people, they don't want to, they may have a trauma from a past abortion, and any pro-life message, whether it's text or graphic, is going to trigger that trauma. I think people have been complacent about abortion. We all sort of bear some sort of responsibility for abortion in our culture. If we don't speak out against it, if we ignore it, if we casually accept it, we're culpable for it as well. Those that don't do anything about it. And whenever we see that message, especially in the graphic form, it triggers that sense of fault in us.
Well, do you want to explain to Kim what it triggered in me when we met on the corner of Bernard and Richter when I was 9 months pregnant?
I mean, if you want to speak for yourself, I would rather it come from you directly. But
well, I have to say, I have driven down, and again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but I've driven down the highway and I've seen those images, and it's one of those things where you see it once and you're like, oh, that makes me mad, and then you see it again, you're like, oh, that's so bad, and you're thinking about the kids that are seeing it and stuff. So when I saw him, I was 9 months pregnant, and I was walking down Richter. My son was actually in the car. I was just going, I parked so that I could talk to you guys. And I saw a woman there first, and I saw her, and I said to her, I said, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why are you showing these graphic images? And she goes, I'm not with them. I'm protesting against them. And then I look over, and I saw you and another man, and I'm like, and you're men? And I remember just being so offended that there was two men on the corner with these graphic images talking about a female's rights. And I think that's what, and also my friend had just lost a child, so from miscarriage. And I just thought about how would she feel if she saw that?
Well, first of all, I mean, there are women that join us at these demonstrations as well. And at UBCO, we had at least 2 women who were holding the signs and make the exact same argument we do. So just because of my sex, I shouldn't be disqualified from expressing myself in public.
You did say you were targeting our campus for a reason. You were targeting the women on our campus. You used the word target, though. So when we're using words like target,
I didn't say women. I said
that's associated with oppression.
I said demographic. That includes male students as well as includes female students.
But you're targeting abortion messages to men?
We're targeting, yes, to public in general. That's right. Yes, because we feel, well, first of all, we believe that men also have a role in making babies, and men will be affected by the abortion decision the rest of their lives. Whether a woman chooses to abort or keep that man's child, that's going to affect the man the rest of his life too, right? He's legal.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure. He's legally obliged to pay for that child from the moment of conception. He has no choice. He doesn't have 9 months to say, you know what, I've decided I don't want to be a parent, I want out of this, I'm done. But a woman has that 9-month window to say, I don't want the responsibility, I'm out of here. A man does not have that privilege. Not to mention the fact that the unborn child.
9 months of pregnancy, I'm privileged that I was able to, have 2 children of my own. But pregnancy is physically, emotionally, and women can't work at lots of times because they're so sick when they're pregnant. There's lots of things that happen. It's not just like a baby just magically appears. Like the woman has to go through a lot of psychological, physiological changes in her body and.
Not to mention, our campus is full of young women who are going to school. So they don't have a lot of money. They are dealing with school because they're trying to get careers. They're trying to get to a point in their life where maybe they will decide that a child is right for them, and they might be in a stable relationship where they feel like that's okay. But a lot of the people on our campus aren't. And so like you're saying, taking on all those physical and emotional changes, like it might just not be the right time.
And not just that, judgment from the public, because
absolutely
all the questions, all these things that go with it, where the men do kind of get off a little bit because nobody knows who the father is in lots of situations, right? So they aren't, like, it's pretty obvious when a woman is pregnant. It's not obvious for the man who played the role in that pregnancy. But let's go back, because it's all about humanizing. Your guys' goal is to humanize unborn children and just not make it like a distant, like a sac. What did you say?
Well, some of the common terms that the pro-abortion movement uses is blob of cells or clump of tissue or massive tissue. various other parasite, various
So
various other
humanizing the
various other dehumanizing terms, which
Right.
which I might add is a common tactic throughout history to dehumanize certain segments of the population in order to be rid of them or destroy them.
Of course. By you being on the show was my attempt at humanizing you, because you know there's lots of things like when I left that conversation with you that we had. Obviously, things were heated with me. Like I was very upset with your guys' graphic images, and I actually threw their poster into the Safeway bushes.
Yeah, and I think people have to ask themselves, you know, why are you so upset? You know, abortion is supposed to be a good, a right, and empowering thing for women. So why do people get so upset when all we're doing is showing abortion?
Right.
Why is it so upsetting?
There's a million reasons, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, after my encounter with you, I went home and I was really actually upset with myself because I didn't want to react that way, but it did. It brought something onto me that was very raw, and just thinking about my friend who lost her child and thinking about children and you know my own experiences along my journey, it was really really hard for me to see that. And I phoned you. I did my research to find out who these guys were, and I found you.
You're not the first one to do that.
I found you and I gave you a call. And you know what, I appreciate it because I did leave like hating your guts when I left there. But when I called you, we talked for like a half an hour, and I thought we had a good conversation. I thought we had a respectful conversation. I said, there's got to be a reason why you're devoting so much time and energy to being out in those corners with those graphic images. And what did you tell me?
Well,
What's your reason?
my recollection and my reason is because this abortion is an injustice, and you know.
But how does it affect you personally?
Me personally, well, I'm the father of an aborted baby, and so.
And that was my.
In 2002, you know, the woman I was living with discovered that we were pregnant, and she was waffling which side to go. And before this, I didn't think about the abortion issue much at all. I just didn't care about it, you know. I just remember a few fleeting thoughts. It's a woman's issue, it's a political issue, it's none of my business. But when I was faced, and it was a crisis pregnancy for me too, you know, it's a man's in this situation too, like I say, it's gonna affect the rest of his life.
But you were in a live-in
That's right,
relationship, yes. So it wasn't just like a one-night stand.
No,
or something like that. It was
we
actually
were
a loving
together for a few
relationship.
months before.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I was comfortable with the news. I thought, okay, new life is coming along. I'm willing to accept responsibility for the results of the choices that I made. And but she was unsure of herself, and it was during that time that I looked into, okay, what is this pro-life versus pro-choice debate all about? And after reading medical texts, different arguments, both sides of the issue, I realized that that's a human being in there growing, like we've all done. We've all been there, growing in the early stages of life. You know, when we were there in the house, there was 3 of us in there, not just 2 of us. There was myself, my girlfriend, and this little unborn baby. You know, that's a human being. It's a person, and abortion takes the life of that human being. You know?
And so she made that decision.
She made the decision to abort on December 31st of 2002, and I tell you, it hit me like a truck. Like it just bowled me right over. I was uncontrollable, weeping, grieving. You know, I reacted like the way people react when they lose a child, not when they have a tooth pull or an appendix removed, you know. And the experience told me that this is a grave, terrible injustice that's taking place in society. And 15 years later, I'm still fighting against it, and I imagine I'll be fighting it until the day I die.
How did that affect your relationship?
We broke up soon after, and the studies show that most couples who do go through an abortion experience do in fact break up afterwards. It's just too traumatizing, it's just too big of a blow that the relationships just don't survive that.
Now, hearing him talk about his personal story, does that humanize him a little bit more for you?
I'm not sure. I mean, I understand, and I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm sorry that you felt so traumatized. But at the same time, the women on our campus that are affected by this are often the ones that are traumatized. And we're using that word, and I know you said earlier that abortion is empowering or something like that, and I don't think that's true. I think having a right over your own body is empowering. I think being able to make our own choices as women is empowering, but I don't think having an abortion is, for a lot of young women, as well, I imagine all of them, that's a terrible experience. But it's because they don't have the money to support a child. They're not at a time in their life where they're stable enough to support a child. And so when they see those graphic images, and I know there was a few girls who were in that situation who saw them, and I had to see them break down. And so for those women, those images are terrifying, and they bring back a lot of things. And you use that word triggering. That's what it does to them. It brings all those emotions back. And to me, that's not a humane thing to do.
Is there a different way that you can send that same message? Because I'm not against your people's right on either side. I don't know people's journeys or what they're going through. But is there a way that you can do it in love and not fear?
Well, we certainly try to. I mean, if anybody approaches us and engages in conversation with us, it's our mandate to be loving and caring and empathetic and listen to the person, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, to your point about it being a traumatic thing, definitely it is a trigger, and it's hard for people to look at those images. I'm not denying that. But the trauma for many of these women that you're talking about is sourced in the abortion, their past abortion. It's not sourced in the trigger. So there's many things, like a woman with a past abortion may be triggered when she sees somebody walking down the street with a baby carriage, or a woman who's 9 months pregnant. That might trigger her traumatic feelings. So we can't just go around eliminating all the triggers.
I'm not sure that's the same as seeing an aborted fetus, though.
That's like cut up and stuff like that. It's really graphic.
It is graphic, and it's disturbing because abortion is graphic and disturbing.
Here's the thing. What about women who are told by their doctor that they can't actually go to term with their baby, so they have to abort it early? And then that happens to them, then they have to see the graphics. Or someone who miscarries and has to see those graphics. Or a mother with her child who hasn't really even had the talk with the birds and the bees or anything, and is having to try to explain to her children what these posters are and what they mean. It's almost, you're forcing a conversation that a lot of mothers don't feel like they
don't feel comfortable to have. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So there's two parts to that question. I gathered is that first of all is what about the women who are triggered or hurt by this? And we believe that for a woman to overcome a past abortion and to deal with it and be healed from it, she needs to face the reality of it. Now, seeing us may trigger her, and it's hurtful, and it's difficult for her to process, but it may be the necessary first step for her in order to get to the root of what it is that has traumatized her.
I don't think that's your right to say that, though. I don't think it's your right to tell her that she needs to come to terms with it. Maybe she's not ready.
I'm gonna stop there for a second, and one of the common themes was what a waste of volunteer hours, because there's people picketing when there could be people adopting children that aren't wanted, or handing out something that's more positive, like have you had an abortion? Here is some resources for you to help you with people like you. For men as well, because a lot of men get ignored in this whole debate, and obviously I can see in your eyes and in the way you feel about what happened to you, that's traumatizing for a man as well. So like handing out that kind of literature or doing something that's more proactive.
Well, I think we all feel compelled to address certain injustices, or our experiences compel us to address certain things in the world. There's people that dedicate their lives for researching for a cure for Crohn's disease, let's say, but nobody ever criticizing them for ignoring cancer or accusing them of not caring about people with cancer or diabetes or Alzheimer's. Everybody's called to their own mission in life.
But it is the same mission. So the people that you're protesting, so Crohn's is different than cancer and these things. This is the same topic.
Well, and the pro-life movement
so
is
instead of displaying these graphic images,
right,
what people online are saying is your time could be better off spent doing something more productive.
I think it would be different as well if it was posting like a conversation about the topic instead of having graphic imagery, or if we were talking about giving young women resources in case they don't want to go down that route and they do want to go down adoption, being like, this is how you can do it. And I think to me that's more proactive than showing these images and hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the pro-life movement, I mean, we do that at the pro-life movement. We have crisis pregnancy care centers that are driven by pro-life people. We have many pro-life people that adopt babies that nobody else wants with Down syndrome or other genetic anomalies. You know, the pro-life movement is not just showing graphic images. That's one strategy within a very large and diverse movement.
The reason we have R ratings on movies, or ratings in general, and the reason we have trigger warnings, and the reason you said that you should remove the children from the room before we even had this conversation, is the reason that those graphic images are wrong. Because we shouldn't force people to see those images, regardless of whether they're children, regardless of whether they're women who have had an abortion, or they're just women, or they're men, or they're university students, or whoever. They shouldn't be forced to see that.
What do you think about that?
Well, we have a right, a constitutional right, protected in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and protected by certain Supreme Court decisions, that we have the right to display this information, to
Actually,
express
we won.
ourselves.
The Students' Union won in Supreme Court that we're not allowed to have a pro-life
Well, I'm
group
talking
on our
about the
campus.
graphic
But
images
also,
in public.
freedom of speech to me is different when we're bullying and oppressing people. I don't think freedom of speech should ever come to that point.
Well, you can, I mean, if you want to take the case of the graphic images to the court, the Supreme Court's already decided that this is protected constitutional speech.
I also think when students are coming onto campus, and for me as a young woman, when I see a man holding up those images, to me, that's really awful. Because not only...
So you didn't see the women that were there with us holding the same images?
I can,
It's
again,
we're born into a system as women, and we can't deny that women are oppressed. And so when we see someone, my immediate response is, he's trying to tell me what to do with my body, and I don't think that's fair.
But I guess from, you know, my point of view, with anything in the news, like I know we're like flooded with, like, you know, Trump and Hillary stuff and all that. There's so much hate out there, and it's triggering a lot of reactions. But is that a good thing? Like, is it a good thing if what you're doing is triggering so much anger and hostility and hatred?
I think it is. I think it is.
You think it is?
Yes, because when you look at the history of the civil rights movement, for example, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. caused all sorts of problems in the streets. You know, his parades and displays caused riots. Lots of people who, even African Americans, were against him and what he did. They threw him in jail. They eventually killed him for all the tension that he caused in society. But it was a necessary tension for society to realize the error that they were making and change their ways.
But when you are talking about like the love and the positive vibe, that's why we had our rally. We didn't call it anti-protest, we called it a rally, and we held up signs that said, your body, your choice, and we hope you have a great day and you made the right choice. And here are resources if you are feeling upset or you want to talk to someone. And we had people coming up and honking their horns, and we had people getting out of their cars and hugging us and talking to us. People brought us donuts, and we had people running down all the way from the hill on campus just to say thank you because we made their days. And there was posts all up on Facebook saying thank you to us, and that made people feel really good and positive. And now after a few days of being really negative and feeling really hurt, that was really nice to see. And for me as a student advocate, I want people to feel good, and I want them to be able to go about their day and ultimately have academic success. And I think being positive and being happy is huge in that.
So is there a way to spin it so that, you know, you guys are these people and not displaying graphic dead unborn fetuses? Is there a way that you could use that same energy in a positive, say, hey...
I've held sign that says, I regret lost fatherhood. And I was still, you know, ridiculed and verbally assaulted and rude gestures thrown my way. And, you know, the reaction is pretty similar no matter what we say. As soon as they realize it's a pro-life message that we're trying to get out, something triggers in them, and we get hostile reactions. You know, it doesn't matter, as I said before, it doesn't matter if it's text or completely graphic.
I think on a university campus, I do think that would be different. I mean, we just held a Black Lives Matter debate, and it was really positive. I mean, there was voices that were speaking, and it was, everyone saw everyone's sides, and I thought it was really positive. And I think that if something like that was held, I think university students are very accepting of everyone and everyone's life choices and everyone's views on things. And so I do think that'd be different. But I think when you're forcing someone to see something that's very graphic and very hurtful, that's when people get upset.
But it's funny, universities claim, and the left generally claims to be very accepting and of all students and different points of views, but yet pro-life clubs are completely banned from campuses. The student unions do everything they possibly can to prevent even a simple little table with fetal models and information about abortion on it is complete anathema to these groups. And
on the majority of campuses, it was because of the same thing. It was because there was graphic imagery. It was because it was oppressing people and hurting people.
Well, even that, it's our right to show images. You know, there's animal rights groups out there that show images of cattle being mistreated, and you know, nobody really objects to that and say they have no right to do that. And
We also don't allow that.
But you have to click on those things to see them. Like you have to choose, like to say, you know what, I want to see what happened at KFC to those poor chickens. And then you click on it, and then you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But when you're driving down Highway 97 and you're just having a good day, and you look to your left or your right and you see a huge poster of an aborted fetus, that's you putting your views on somebody without their permission.
And it was a place on campus where it couldn't really be avoided.
Thankfully, we live in a free society that allows us to do those kinds of things, you know, and I wouldn't give it up. There's an old saying that says, you know, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. And that, I think, is it's a hallmark of a civilized and democratic society. Freedom of expression is very important and very...
Unless it's oppressing someone and hurting them.
Yeah, which the Supreme Court says that pro-life speech and even these graphic images are not. They are not obscene, and they are legitimate freedoms.
Then why do you think we won in Supreme Court that a pro-life club could not be on our campus due to the reasons that they had the graphic imagery?
Not all court decisions go a right way, and court decisions can be changed. I mean,
this is going to be a debate that's never going to be solved, but we have to find a way to coexist in a way that's productive for everybody. So is there a way that you can do more proactive things, like going into high school saying, hey, I'm going to do a talk on this, or you know, this, like the changing the signs up a little bit. Like there has to be a way that isn't. I agree that the shock was probably productive when you went to those high schools and said, you know, you said that image did change your mind, but they went in there knowing what they were in for. Is there a way that you can more target in that way instead of targeting the entire population in the Okanagan?
Well, we'd be happy to go into the public schools with our message. Traditionally, even the university, in the past we've emailed the professors at the university, hey, we have this hour-long presentation we can give, and it's basically crickets when we send out these emails and opportunities to these institutions.
Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity right now.
Media shows like this, for example, won't show the images.
It won't show the images because
even when you do give a warning at the beginning of the show that it may be graphic. And
well, what we're talking
So
about.
what recourse do we have then?
Well, you do. So if you are somebody that is watching this program and you would like more information, maybe you're struggling, you're going through a pregnancy and you're scared or something's going on in your life, what are the resources that you can pass on? You have...
Well,
there's your camera right there.
There's the Okanagan Valley Pregnancy Care Center in town. There's Rachel's Vineyard in town, which administers and helps women with a past abortion come to terms with what she's experienced and make her whole again. So there's resources in the Kelowna area that will help.
Are there resources on campus that women can go to talk about if they're in a situation where they are pregnant and they don't know where to go for help, or what kind?
Absolutely. We have the Women's Resource Center, and they're open to talking about whether or not you would like an abortion or you would like to not have an abortion. They have those resources. And information. We have the Health and Wellness Center, who those are doctors and nurses who are more than willing to give any information. They can come and see me at the UBCO. I'd be happy to give them information. We also have the PSN, which supports mental health, so they can go and talk peer-to-peer with someone. And then we also have third space counseling if they want to talk to a mental health professional about it.
Great. So no matter what side of the coin you are on this topic, there are resources available for you, and we hope that you use them. And you guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. And do you feel okay about being here?
Sure, of course.
And you?
Absolutely.
See, there's no fists flying. I'm not throwing posters. I told him to leave the poster at the door, so I wouldn't throw it again. Well, no, I really appreciate us having these discussions, and I honestly think in the time we're living in right now, there's so much censorship, and there isn't enough of your side that's able to actually have a platform to talk about these issues. So this was your time to, say what you need to say.
And we appreciate it. Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate you guys coming and having an adult conversation, and let's have more of these online, on social media. Let people have their opinions and still respect each other.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. We'll see you in a little while. See you in the very near future.
Are you going to UBCO?
Oh, we'll be back there for sure.
Get ready, girl.